Hello, and welcome to the Professional Development Motivate, Connect, and Engage Your Students. We're working far outside our comfort zones or comfortably within ourselves. I'm your host, Angela Dick. I hope you're as excited as I am to get this professional development started. First, let's start off with some teacher clarity. Our learning intentions today include learning to analyze and synthesize trends in research on motivation in online and distance learning. We're also going to learn about what students enjoy and what motivates them, and we're learning to creatively think outside of the box. So how will we know we're successful? We will know we're successful when we can name 4 core trends in motivating students online. We can also brainstorm at least 3 ways to incorporate student voice, choice, and rewards into our digital classrooms. All right, let's talk about the why. We want to also make sure that everything we learn today is in a planning forward for incorporation into our classroom instruction. Otherwise, why are we here? So we're here to learn so that way we can impact the lives of our students. So let's jump into that golden circle. Let's start with the why. So why is this important to us? Well, we want to make sure that we're finding ways to motivate, connect, and engage our students in virtual learning because we're living in a new reality right now, and we need some new tools and tricks that will help us connect to our students. Well, how are we going to do this? Well, this is an online module that is pre-recorded. So as a learner, you are going to watch, you're going to listen, learn, pause, reflect, record your thinking. You're going to plan forward, share your ideas, and then I'm really hoping you implement these ideas into your practice. Next, well, what is it that we're actually doing? What are we learning? Well, those go back to our learning intentions. We're really talking about the trends in research on motivation in online and distance learning, student voice, rewards, and then also instructional creativity. So we're offering this session as a baseline, just information on how to become even more creative than you already are in your classroom. Please note that this session is designed for both elementary and secondary staff members. Some ideas are going to apply to elementary, some ideas will apply better to secondary. So please keep an open mind and be ready for some learning. Since we are doing this online, I am going to use some symbols throughout. If you see the pause symbol, that means I'd like you to stop the recording and do a little bit more thinking, possibly some planning. I will also want you to record some of your ideas. So you're going to see the pencil throughout the professional development as well. There will be some touch points where I'd love for you to be able to communicate with other people. And in that communication, it's here are some of the things that I'm learning about, but also let's plan together based on some of these ideas as well. So make sure you're paying attention to those symbols. All right, let's jump into the research. So we've got to have a little heavy before we get to the light and the fun and the creativity. But first, let's hear from some of those experts. All right, we are all very familiar with John Hattie and his work with visible learning. Recently, he came out with an article published by Corwin called Visible Learning Effect Sizes When Schools Are Closed, What Matters and What Does Not. So in this research, he came up with a couple of touch points. Here, we want to make sure that we tailor the learning toward the students who cannot do the work. Tailor the learning towards what students cannot do. We want to make sure that what we do in the time that we have students is essential, so we don't waste any time while we have them with us. Now, I really appreciated this quote. As both an educator and as a parent, I thought this was really important. A great teacher has deep pedagogical content knowledge, skills in motivation and engagement, skills in dealing with disruptions and boredom and distractions. So think about yourself as a teacher. I'm really hoping all of these things apply to you. Now, the thing to remember is our students are learning online and they're being provided with assistance by you directly, but they're also being provided with assistance from their parents, their guardians, family members, and friends. You have to remember, parents are not always teachers. Sometimes they are, but they aren't always. Now think about it. If I have a first grade teacher, but they have a student who's learning physics, it's going to be really difficult for them to help them unless they really enjoyed physics and really learned a lot and they maintained it throughout the years. So keep that in mind. We also want to make sure that we engage students in optimal tasks, not just by keeping them busy with busy work. We want to make sure that they're actually going deeper with the content. All right, next, teacher clarity. This was really important. It matters more when students are not in front of you to correct, cajole, give instant feedback to. So we want to make sure we're very clear about our intentions. Give them that learning intention, give them the success criteria, and then give them the relevancy as well. So tell them the why. Why is this important to you? All right, next. Couple more ideas. We want to make sure we're creating opportunities for social interaction, not just between you and the student, but using technology for students to work, share, interact, and learn together. A couple of key takeaways from this article by John Hattie. So this is specifically for distance learning. We want to optimize those social interactions. We want to make sure we check for understanding regularly, and we work to balance the knowledge that they're gaining and deep thinking as well. There's a little bit more research I'd like to share with you, this time from Engaging and Motivating Students in a Virtual Learning Environment. Okay, I have a couple of key phrases that are in bold print right here. I know you can read this to yourself. I'm going to pause for just a moment, let you kind of synthesize what you can get out of this quote here. All right, we're most deeply engaged. We do our most creative work. We are always willing to work on behalf of our own goals that we find meaningful, so relevancy. We're also more able to work when we have those emotional ties to what we're doing as well. We want to feel connected to that. So we want to make sure that we engage and motivate our students by giving them those opportunities to have relevant work, to have goals that they have those emotional ties to as well. A little bit more from that article. We want our students to be able to communicate with other people. We want to give them time to collaborate with their peers. We as teachers need to set very clear expectations, so we have that teacher clarity again about what they're learning, how they're participating, and then also that progress monitoring. We want students to work on setting goals for themselves. And of course, we want to encourage that collaborative environment. I know you've probably heard it from me before, but research shows that collaborative learning environment, students learn so much more than if they have that regular traditional classroom where the teacher is the person has all of the knowledge and the students just have to sit and listen to the teacher. All right, got a little bit more research for you. If you went online and searched for what works best in online or distance learning, there are a lot of articles out there. So I took those articles and I did my best to find the best and synthesize that research for you today. So this is from 5 tips to keep learners motivated and engaged when teaching online. We want to make sure that we are building a sense of community. So that gives us a connectedness to our students, and we let them connect to each other as well. We want our students to truly feel like they can succeed. We want them to be able to monitor their own progress. We want them to celebrate when they've actually reached and achieved their goals. And number 5, we want to relate the class to students' lives. So we want to have that relevancy. We want it to be meaningful to them. Ooh, here's another slide. We've got 6 more ways to fuel your students' motivation in e-learning. So more ideas. So this research says we want to provide some choice. And I know many of you are out there providing choice to your students. Build competency. We want students to be led to success through that guidance. We want to feed their creativity and critical thinking. Give them novel content because we know the brain wakes up when there's novelty. We don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. Am I right? And then number 6, of course, leads into that novelty. We have variety with what we ask our students to do. So I sat down and I looked through all of this research, and there was a ton of it. And what I really found were there were 4 true keys from this research, and I'd love to share those with you now. Those keys are, number 1, teacher clarity. We want to ensure that we are as clear as possible about the intent of our lesson. This is what we're learning today. This is how we'll know we're successful. And guys, this is why we're learning it. So that's all teacher clarity. Number 2, we want quality instruction, quality experiences for our students over quantity. Busy work is the enemy. Give them work that's going to help them become better thinkers and be able to apply things lifelong, not just complete a worksheet packet. Number 3, relevancy. We want to stick to what makes them passionate. We want to connect it to the real world. Next, Social interaction. It's not just sit down in front of a computer, watch a video, do your work, turn it in. We want our students to interact with us socially as teachers, and we want them to interact with each other. And there are lots of different formats that you can have them do that by using this online learning. So those are 4 of the key things. I want to go into just a little bit more depth with each of the 4, and we will revisit these throughout the rest of our training today. All right, so first we're going to talk about teacher clarity and quality over quantity. So with teacher clarity, we have our learning intention, success criteria, we're doing goal setting, we're also checking for understanding as the teacher, and students are progress monitoring based on the goals that they have set. So if we're very clear about our learning intentions, we're clear about our success criteria, students are going to know what success looks like because we've explained it to them, we've given them models of that, and we've shared with them possibly a rubric for their learning as well. Next, our quality over quantity. We really want to emphasize both creative and critical thinking. This is where we're going to get to the deeper thinking, the deeper learning, where we have that transference of knowledge and skills. Then we give students choice. Remember, teachers, we don't just give them choice, any old choice. We give them a choice that we can live with, but they get some autonomy because they get to pick out of maybe a list of 5 things that you're okay with. And why not? Give them that choice and they will just absolutely love your class. Next, we want to make sure that they're doing a lot of deep thinking. So give them topics that they can grapple with. All right. We also have relevancy and social interaction. So let's jump into those. Relevancy, we want to make sure that their learning experiences are meaningful to them. It captures their interests. John Hattie talked a lot about using social media to our advantage, and I have a couple of examples for that later on in our workshop today. Then you want to make sure it's real world as well. Social interaction, I think you guys know what that means. We continue to build relationships. We make those connections with our students, but we want our students to build relationships with each other as well. So if you see things are not going well, if you see students are not talking to each other when you're hosting your office hours, think about it. Have you had them talk to each other about something just fun? Not even like, how are you feeling? How are things going? How about we just go ahead? We've talked about that. We're taking care of their social emotional needs as well. But also, let's talk about things that are just fun and relevant to them. Next, collaborative. Make sure that they're working together and make sure you have that individual accountability. It's not group work. We're doing cooperative and collaborative work. Next, we want to work on that communication. Communication is essential in so many content areas, and it's essential in life as well. Next, engagement. We want to ensure that we have cognitive engagement. We don't just have compliance. Compliance does not get to deeper thinking. And then we want to make sure that we're building that community of learners in our classroom. I know that's hard to do online, but there are so many opportunities that you have to continue to build those relationships in your classroom. Okay, so let's take some time to think. Notice I have my symbols right here in the corners. You know what that means. We're going to pause and you guys are going to do some reflection. So this is up to you how you take these notes. If you love to take Cornell notes, maybe you go ahead and take some Cornell notes. If you love to do sketch notes, take some sketch notes. If you like to journal, it's totally up to you. You have choice over how you take these notes. So what does this all mean to you? Knowing what the research says and learning ideas from experts in online learning, what are some of your biggest takeaways from the slides that we just covered? Now remember, our key points were teacher clarity, quality over quantity, relevancy, and social interaction. Maybe set some goals for yourself as well. Okay, pause the recording and we'll join back together here in just a moment. All right, hopefully you took some time to set some personal goals. You wrote down your thinking, maybe you sketched some notes as well. Let's go ahead and move forward. I've got some input that I was able to gather from some students about how they feel about how things are going for them with online learning. Now, no, when we gather input from students, this is not every single student that we work with. It's a handful who are willing to share. And this is just general information. So first, elementary students. Check out their likes, check out their dislikes. Are you surprised by what you see on the screen? I doubt it. Some of these things you're going to see on both sides. There are some students who absolutely love choice boards, others who absolutely do not. But kind of the consensus was they all really enjoy interacting with the teachers. They love the lessons that are videotaped for them. They love interacting with the teacher online. So make sure that you're really thinking about, what do my students want from me, and how can I plan forward based on what they most need from me as their online teacher. All right, next, secondary students. Check this out. I'm sure you're probably not surprised by what you see here, and I'm sure you can probably add more to both columns as well. Now, one thing all of these students had in common was they're really interested in seeing their teachers use a little bit more creativity in video. I'm not saying that some of you are not doing that. Many of you are extremely creative, but have you ever done a TikTok? Have you used Snapchat in your classroom? Couple of ideas that we're going to get to later on today. So we do the best we can to show them that we want to relate to them and use things that really connect to them. So I do have ideas I'll share with you during this module. All right, next, I know every single building is implementing or going to be implementing CI3T. Now, you've brainstormed rewards that students could potentially receive based on following the positive behavior support plan. So here are some ideas that some people have brainstormed. I realize some of these ideas will not work at every single level. These are just ideas to help you get started. So be thinking in your classroom, if students show up on time, if they complete their work, if they engage in those collaborative discussions that you ask them to be part of, could they potentially earn points to earn one of these rewards? I know some of our students really appreciate having, quote, lunch with the teacher, or they like having lunch with the principal, no matter what age they are. So think about a reward system, and also talk to your school. Is there some type of rewards that they have already developed as a leadership team that correlate back to your CI3T manual? So check into that. Okay, so I know that wasn't a whole lot. I do want you to stop and think about, okay, what are some ways you could gather your own students' feedback about what they like and what they're, maybe not a little happy about, knowing that we do have guidelines that we are following right now for continuous learning. There are some things we just can't get rid of, and there are some things, that we're really happy that are going so well for you as teachers. All right, so take some reflection. Where is your thinking at right now? Pause the video, as you can see from our symbol, and we'll jump back in here in just a moment. All right, welcome back. I hope you took a little bit of time to plan forward for yourself. We are going to jump into the next part, and this part I'm super excited for. We are going to talk about technology that helps our students become a little bit more motivated. I know you guys are very familiar with our amazing website. Please make sure that you visit our specialized website that does have training for a lot of different technology apps and extensions that you can use to create lessons or support your students if you are elementary. So we have Seesaw, Flipgrid, Pear Deck, Edpuzzle, Zoom, and Google Meet. All of those are technology components that students really feel motivated with. I know our students love to do Seesaw. They love to have responses with Flipgrid. Pear Deck is a great way to get them to engage in the moment with you as well. Edpuzzle, you can have lessons where students don't have to be present with you, but they're able to actually stop the recording, answer a question, do some feedback. And then, of course, Zoom and Google Meet, they get to see you live, which is amazing for them. Well, I don't want to talk about those today. Today, I want us to actually get really, really, really creative. I know you can get really creative with these devices, but we're going to talk about some other ways to become creative in an online learning environment because we want to make sure that we are motivating our students. Okay, so first, let's talk about life imitating art. All right, I want to give you a couple of questions to get you kind of thinking before we jump into the ideas that I have put together for you. All right, so how might you allow for creative thinking to flourish in your classroom? Now, creative thinking is deep thinking. It's brainstorming. It's coming up with new ways to do things. It's being able to design things. It's a really powerful concept. Next, in what ways can you be creative with content? So it's not just creative thinking for your students, it's also asking you as a teacher, how can you work towards more creativity in your classroom? So this comes back to our success criteria. Here we are being very clear about our expectations, that we're going to plan for, incorporate various creative technologies in our digital classroom. So I've got some ideas for you. Now, let's think back. We have 4 keys from our research. Number 1, quality over quantity. We want to make sure that we're addressing creative and critical thinking skills. We give some student choice. Next, we have that social interaction. So we want collaboration, we want communication, and then relevancy. Social media, use it, if you want. Be cautious about it though. Please know that not all students have social media. So keep that in mind as well. And then make sure that we tie this to student interest. So those are 3 core elements we're going to go over for the majority of the rest of the PowerPoint. But don't forget, number 4 was teacher clarity. Okay, teacher clarity, you're going to see that come up again and again. All right, so with that being said, here's our life imitating art. I know you guys have probably seen this on social media, and I had to just jump in on the craze. So here we have an artist who has made this beautiful painting. I got this off of the Met. They do have artwork that you can use for free in lessons and other things as well. So this one's titled A Woman with a Dog. Well, you know what? I wanted to be really creative. So I was thinking, okay, well, what's a way that we can connect this motivation to visual arts? Well, what if we ask our students in our visual arts classrooms to recreate some type of a painting that they found or a sculpture? So I did that in my own home. So I recreated a woman with a dog. And here is my creation. This is titled A Woman with an Impatient Dog. And I am not the artist, but my daughter is the artist, so I gave her some credit there. So I am going to allow you to have just some open thinking about how could you apply that to your own classroom. I know you're not all visual arts teachers, but please use art in your classroom no matter what it is that you teach. There's so much power in being creative in all content areas. So I would love to be able to go with students and say, okay, let's do a side-by-side comparison. How does yours look compared to the original? What did you get that was really similar? What could you have done better? Okay, do a little bit of a critique on the art that you've created. Okay, what process did you go through to actually create this piece of art? And I will tell you, we did some heavy editing on my picture, and my dog was such a good sport. Really, I think we did pretty great. What do you guys think? Okay, I have another one for you. So we are going to take it another step. Here's another painting. It's A Woman with a Dog. Okay, exact same title even, but a different artist. So let's see how I did with my interpretation. Got really creative, and I just went and found things that I had in my house, and here I am. And this one is titled A Woman with a Dog Who Really Likes Cheese. Y'all, my dog will do just about anything for cheese. In fact, he's listening to me right now. Sorry, buddy. Okay, so now let's do the side-by-side comparison. Okay, how did I do? Maybe you have a rubric. Maybe you have them write down, okay, what was the process that you took? What did you look for? Okay, were you trying to make sure you found the right type of material? Did you find the right colors? Did you have the right props? How did you decide on which props you used? So there are so many different questions that you could give to students before they do this activity or after they do the activity. Okay, so I just showed you a couple of examples. I want you to pause and reflect over this question. In what ways is this a powerful activity? How might you be able to incorporate the concept of life imitating art in your content area lessons? And I have a couple content areas listed over here on the left. I know I haven't captured everybody, but please have an open mind. Okay, how could you incorporate this if you are a social studies teacher? If you are an elementary teacher and you're doing a little bit of support, could you do this for fun with your students during your office hours? So take a moment, pause the recording, come up with some ideas. Make sure you write those down inside of your notes. All right, welcome back. I hope you came up with some creative ideas. Now, this slide, I did not have the communicate your ideas with others icon on here, but please feel free to communicate your ideas with other people. And definitely feel free to communicate them back with me as well. I'd love to hear your ideas and how they go in your classroom. All right, we're going to jump into our next area. Just a reminder, I'm going to give you some pre-thinking time. How might you allow for creative thinking to flourish in your classroom? And in what ways can you be creative with content? Again, this is going back to this success criteria. I want you to plan for and incorporate various creative technologies in your digital classrooms. All right, so this time, I'm so excited about this. We are still looking at quality over content, social interaction, relevancy, and of course, we have that teacher clarity there as well. So next, I'm telling you, I had a lot of fun getting ready for the next part, these next ideas. If you have a cell phone, you can probably create most of these things that I have done that I'm about to show you yourself with little to no help from anyone else. I will tell you, everything that I've done that I'm going to share with you today was self-taught. And it did not take me hours upon hours to actually do. It just took a little bit of thinking time first. What do I want to create? What do I want to do for this professional development? That took more time than making the videos I'm about to show you. So just hang tight, be thinking, how might I use this in my own classroom? Not necessarily Angela's video, but how can you make your own videos? How can you have your students make these videos? All right, let's jump into the very first one. So this first video, we created a really short demonstration using iMovie on my iPhone for a concept in physics. I did recruit my daughter to help me out with this. Now, this movie does not include a voiceover, so I wanted you to see that you have options. So this one is the egg drop. So let's just check this out really quickly together. Okay, I gotta admit, that was a lot of fun to make. So you can create very simple movies just like that using your phone. I just took a lot of videos. I'm gonna go backwards. Took videos and then I plugged them into my iMovie. I did a little bit of music, added some words to it as well. Again, all of it was self-taught. Next, here's another example. This time I have a mini lesson using Snapchat and iMovie. So I filmed everything that you see using Snapchat, using filters. Our students would love it if your lessons featured you with some crazy filter and some crazy voice. So get ready for a 5th grade mini lesson on gravity.
All right, students, today's lesson is all about gravity. I hope you're ready.
I am ready. I am ready. I am ready.
So what is gravity? Gravity is the force that attracts a body toward the center of the earth or toward any other physical body having mass. Today, scientists, you are going to work on a gravity experiment. First, I want you to make observations. What do you notice about gravity? Second, how does the mass of an object affect gravity? The next thing I want you to explore is making a hypothesis. It's an answer to the question. Then plan your experiment, conduct your experiment, and record your data. Here are some examples of objects that you can use in your experiment for today's science lesson. You can find all of this information in Google Classroom. All right, scientists, I'm going to use a plastic cup and a rock. I predict the plastic cup will take 3 seconds to fall and the rock will take 1. Welcome back, scientists. I really hope you enjoyed conducting an experiment today with the concept of gravity. To complete your assignment, make sure you have filled out your predicted time, the actual time that it took, as well as charting your data using this graph provided. It has been such a pleasure learning with you today, scientists. I'll see you next time.
All right, and just so you know, I did not dye my hair. If you've never used Snapchat before, that was a filter that I used. And you're able to change your voice to whatever type of voice you want. I chose to use a robot voice since we were talking about gravity. Just think about your students. I don't care if you teach 5-year-olds or 18-year-olds. They would just love it if you showed up to class using some type of a Snapchat video in your classroom. All right, the next video I'd like to share with you is a stop motion production that I created a couple of years ago. It goes by really, really fast, but I use an app on my cell phone that's literally called Stop Motion, and the title of the story is just a ladybug story. It's just a couple seconds long, so let's check out this ladybug story.
The little red ladybug decided it wanted to go for a walk, but it was so lonely and it just wanted a friend. All of a sudden, it came across the orange ladybug.
All right, stop short a little bit there on the end of my story, but that's it. Okay, that for me was a lot of fun to make and get ready. So if you have younger students, you could have them use this app if they have a parent who has a cell phone that they could borrow, and they could practice making their own stop motion video, or you as a teacher could create one for fun, going over the concepts. You could even create like little clip art. You can cut it out. You can use that for your stop motion videos. Hopefully this is just giving you some additional ideas on what you could potentially use to create engaging and fun lessons that are relevant for your students that could also have them think at deeper levels as well. Next, I'm sure by now, if you've been on social media, you've heard it all about TikTok. Yes, I did download TikTok, and yes, I did make a video. I made one video, and it's the video that you're about to see. So think about it. If you're, let's just say social studies, you've been working on geography and you assign the students different locations where they could do some exploration. And this is just a really fast example of a way to use TikTok to show the location that they're actually exploring. They could then do a follow-up presentation about it. This could be the opening to their presentation. So check out my really quick travel TikTok, and I will tell you, I just used a template. This was super easy. It probably took 5 minutes for me to make. All right, let's check it out. Or not. Let's go backwards. Technology, you guys. Gotta love it. Super easy. All I had to do was pick 6 pictures out to have this little summary of what it looks like at Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. The students could then go on and talk about all the facts that they learned about Myrtle Beach. All right, this next one I'm super excited about. This is a step-by-step tutorial on how to refinish furniture. Okay, if you're like, okay, Angela, I get it. I don't need to know how to refinish furniture. You can fast forward the video by like maybe a minute and a half, but if you want to hang out with me, you get to see a project that I completed that I'm pretty excited about, and you'll get to learn about how to refinish furniture. So if you didn't know before, you're getting your own tutorial right now.
This tutorial will help you with refinishing furniture. Step 1, clean the furniture you selected and sand until you are happy with the surface. After you have sanded, clean the furniture again and apply primer. Sometimes the furniture needs multiple coats of primer. Sand between coats. After you've applied primer, make sure you sand before you apply the paint that you have selected. Ensure that you have a little buddy to help you with any project. After you have applied primer, sand, clean the surface, and apply your paint. You might have to add multiple layers of paint. Next, if you need to, design a new top, sand, stain, and add polyurethane. Put the project together, make sure you sand it, and put on wipe-on polyurethane. add your hardware to your project, and then celebrate a job well done.
All right, there you go, guys. I hope you see that I tried to find different content areas to bring to you today for video examples. So let's just look at what some of those examples were. First, you looked at an iMovie that was created for the egg drop. That one contained no voiceover. It was simply visuals of how to do it, including some words. So it's gather the materials, and then we have the ramp. Next, you guys experienced a Snapchat movie that was created with iMovie as well over Gravity for 5th grade. Then we had the stop motion, super quick, A Ladybug Story. Then we traveled to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina using the TikTok travel template. And then very last, we had the iMovie with voiceover on refinishing furniture. So you just experienced a couple of ways that could apply relevancy to your students. So think about it. How can I be creative as the teacher? How can my students be creative in showing what they know? So let's jump back into the research that we learned earlier today. First, we want to make sure that we have quality over quantity. Then we want to make sure we give our students time for social interaction and have relevancy to their lives. Now, any of those movies, they could actually combine together and do a collaborative movie if they have the technology available to them. I understand we have some limitations in our households. I totally get it. We also have some students who all have iPhones. So find out what they have, find out what their needs are. If they don't have the capacity to do some of these things, do you have the capacity to do it? They would love it if you showed up and said, here's a little video I created for you, and you featured your dog, just like I featured my little dog. And then of course, number 4, it's that teacher clarity piece as well, making sure they understand what is it that we're learning, why are we learning it, and how will we know we're successful. So I'm going to have us stop and just think. Okay, you just experienced the videos that I created just for you. In what ways might you be able to use technology to create your own videos, whether you can use your cell phone or maybe even your laptop? Some of our laptops have video cameras on them, or all of them should, because we're all doing Zoom and Google Meet with our students. So what type of videos could you create? What concepts can you teach students through video? What are some demonstrations you can share with your students? Now, I have a challenge for you. So you'll notice I have the little icon for communication outside of this training. So discuss videography with a colleague. Could you team up with them on a project? What topic could be covered? What type of video would you create? And who would be responsible for what components? So do a little bit of planning and thinking with each other. Well, this is your time to pause and then do some recording and then think about who you'd like to collaborate with. So take a moment, pause the recording, and we'll jump right back into our training in just a moment. All right, I hope you came up with a couple of great ideas. Again, just like before, if you come up with anything that you're really excited about, feel free to share that idea with me. If you've got questions, feel free to contact me as well. I've got more ideas for you now. Remember, we're working on quality. We're working on making sure that we have relevancy and we have that social interaction for our students, and we're extremely clear about what our expectations are for their learning. So the next step we're going to look at is using any of this type of media in our classrooms. So photographs, clip art, magazine clippings, newspapers to show content and comprehension. I have a couple of examples that I'd like to share with you today, and all of them feature my little dog named Hoot. You're already familiar with Hoot. He was helping me out in a project in my shop. All right, so let's check it out. Could you use photography, photographs that you take at your own house to help students understand and learn vocabulary? Could you post pictures like what I've got on the screen and ask students to describe what they see using some of the vocabulary terms that they've been learning? Maybe they've learned about what does it mean to look or be energetic? What does it mean to feel lazy? So have them really describe what they see going on in the pictures. Have them take their own pictures to describe the vocabulary terms that they're learning in your classroom. How about character education? Okay, I've got a couple of ideas for you, still featuring Hoot. How about this? Maybe we're working on being more patient. So let's learn about the word impatience. So the assignment might be, okay, for our students to write a description of a time that you showed impatience, And in what ways could you have handled this emotion differently? So recognizing that we are all impatient at some point in time, but we're going to work carefully to improve ourselves and improve our patience, just like Hoot is trying to improve his patience. Yeah, he's really struggling with that. Okay, moving on. The next one for character. How about avoidance? Let's talk about what it means to avoid certain things. He is avoiding interacting with other people in this example. So here's the activity you can have your students do. What does it mean to avoid something? Have you ever tried to avoid a responsibility that you have? Discuss this with your team. Maybe you're doing a breakout in your virtual classroom. Have them discuss this together. How might a different choice impact the situation? Explain that. Okay, after this avoidance, I've got one more for the character education, and it's anger. Students, have you ever felt angry? Okay, who have you felt angry at? Have you been angry with yourself? What about with your parents or your friends or your brother or your sister or even, your next door neighbor? So how about this? We talk about it. How does anger impact you? How does anger impact those around you? Brainstorm possible ways to deal with that anger. And then what are you willing to commit to? So how are you going to make changes so you're not so angry? So we could teach them how we can actually handle anger and deal with anger and stress. Okay, so a couple of ideas on using photographs. Now you can also use clip art. You could use photographs you find on the internet if they're free and available. And you can also use magazine clippings to help them understand vocabulary concepts in history, concepts in science. All right, so take some time, think to yourself, how can students use photographs to show what they know, show what they've learned? What are some possible topics that they could photograph to show you as evidence? What could you do for fun? I know some of you are doing a lot of nice, just wonderful activities with your students. Could you do something just for team building? Could you do something for class building where it's just a fun topic? This would be great for you to be able to use in your classroom. Next, in what ways can clip art or magazine clippings be used to demonstrate concepts as a teacher or to have your students show what they know? As a teacher, how might you use all of these mediums in your classroom to help you further their learning? So take a moment, pause the recording, and do some reflection. All right, I hope you came up with some fun ideas that you're willing to implement in your classroom. Now, the ideas that you've come up with today so far, I know some of them can be applied to your online classroom right now. Some of them you might not be able to apply. I understand that. I totally do. Some of these ideas you can absolutely use when we get back to face-to-face instruction with our students. So if there are ideas you cannot use right now, but you can use when we get back to the classrooms, please don't forget about it. So don't lose those notes that you've taken today. All right, let's go back, do a little refresher. We learned about 4 trends in motivation, connection for online learning. Quality over quantity. Don't give them tons of busy work. We want them to have deep learning with each other. We want them to be able to gain knowledge at this time. Next, please give them opportunities for social interaction between you and with each other as well. Give them time to work together. Next, have it relevant to their lives. Use things that they're familiar with. Use the Snapchat filters. Use TikTok yourself. You can't really require students to use those social media techniques. You can show them what you personally have tried out, and if they choose to do it, they need to get that parent permission to be able to do that, to show what they know. Next, make sure you have that teacher clarity. Be very clear about your expectations. Okay, now that we've kind of talked about those things, think about those 4 trends. What are you willing to implement tomorrow? So notice on this one, this is a pause point where I want you to document, but it's also something that I want you to talk to other people about. So I've got all 3 symbols here. So pause the recording, do some reflection, and if you need to talk to somebody right now, please reach out to somebody right now. Then we'll jump back to conclude our training today. Welcome back. I hope you came up with some ideas that you can implement tomorrow. Remember, the ideas that I crafted using technology, using my cell phone, did not take me very long, and I was self-taught for all of it. So if you have trouble using your own cell phone or your iPad, or if you have a computer that can do some of this stuff, look online for help guides on how to use some of that technology. All right, next, I want to check in on our teacher clarity for our learning today. So let's check the success criteria. Can you now name the 4 core trends in motivating students online? Okay, think about that. We want quality over quantity, social interaction, relevancy, and teacher clarity. We've talked about that throughout our training today. Next, I want you to be able to brainstorm at least 3 ways that you can incorporate student voice, choice, and rewards into your own digital classroom. Hopefully you can say, yes, I've got some ideas. I have at least 3 ideas. And then last but not least, plan for and incorporate various creative technologies in our digital classrooms. So what are some things that you're really excited about taking forward into your classroom to share with your students? Maybe you just start with you yourself. You use creative technologies to introduce concepts, to have fun with your students before you have them practice with creative technologies. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me together for the Motivate, Connect, and Engage Your Students in our continuous learning opportunities. Please contact me with your questions. My name is Angela Dick. These videos and the photographs did feature a model dog citizen, Hoot, and I give a special shout out to my daughter Aubrey for helping me with everything when it came to doing the videotape. She was a real trooper. And speaking of Aubrey, not everything went as planned when we were doing some videotaping, and I thought you might be interested in watching a bloopers reel. If you're not, fast forward about 2 minutes to the final slide of the presentation. But if you want to see some silly stuff, just sit tight, watch, and feel free to laugh at me and laugh at my dog. Okay, technology. Okay, sit tight. We're going to get this going. There we go.
Gosh dang it! Thank you. I heard
Hoot, where are you going? We have more work to do. Hoot, come back. Oh, you're such a good boy. Who's a good boy? You are. Just being lazy on the job. He thinks he can play all day long. Hey, buddy, we got work to do. Where are you going? Come back. Really? Oh, jeez. I'm gonna have to get another actor. Okay, is that everything? Yeah. Okay. I think you're recording. No.
All right, you guys, at the start of this, I said I wanted you to think outside of your comfort zone, outside of the box, but then also some of you are really comfortable with doing stuff like this. I tell you what, I had an absolute blast getting ready to offer this professional development session. I really hope you gained some new knowledge from this and you're motivated to go and use these innovative ideas in your own classroom. And I hope you had a couple times where you did laugh just a little bit throughout this training. All right, just a real quick shout out to some of the resources that I used. Of course, I used my phone, Snapchat, stop motion app, TikTok app, and there are several different resources that I used online as well. If you need to pause the video, if you want to go and visit any of these resources, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for Motivate, Connect, and Engage Your Students. Have a wonderful week.